I have got a wild game for you guys to look at today. This is from the fantasy variation of the Caro-Kann, from the ChessGoals Caro-Kann course. And this is the move where white breaks the repertoire and plays a new move. And it's actually a pretty deadly idea that they have here that I recently faced in one of my games, and then I found this game as well. So we'll look at both of those, and I'll show you the right way to play this. But this is a great game, and white totally spanks black. So this is not like a happy day for the Caro-Kann, but this is something that you guys definitely going to want to be aware of. So the course just has the knight coming back, and then we drop the queen back to c7. But white can play c3, which defends this knight and threatens to play, not that, but b4. And this is a pretty tricky move. Both me and this game, I played bishop to e7, which is the wrong move. The move that you should be playing here is bishop to d6. And I didn't like bishop d6 because of, well, knight f5 looks pretty terrifying. And then we can go bishop to e5, but then it gives us check anyway. And after takes queen, our king looks like it's stuck, and we're not gonna be able to castle. And I mean, we can win a knight, but then we give this check, and we block, and he takes on g7, and it turns out that black is totally winning. We're absolutely crushing. And the point is that we have this check, and when he blocks, we give another check, and we come back to f6, and we defend the rook. It didn't look at all possible that we could defend the rook here. So if you play this way, you're doing great. I don't want to spoil the main line for what actually happens in the game, but we'll go back and take a look at this. So bishop to e7, and then here white plays a move that doesn't really look possible, but they play bishop to c4. And against bishop e7, this is extra strong. Even against bishop d6, it's still a pretty strong idea, and we're going to look at that in a little bit. Of course, he has ideas of hitting f7, castling, hitting f7 again, playing the queen out, and hitting f7 again. There's kind of a theme here. So here, black chose to play knight to d7. Knight f6 is probably better, just try to get castled as soon as humanly possible, but he was probably afraid of e5 coming, which makes sense. Here white chose b4, kicks the queen back, and prevents again this fork. Again, this fork is nothing. We can't play, go back after the initial move. We can't play here because he'll just take it. And after he takes, we play king f7, and knight c5 happens, and it looks like that we can just take it, but we can't. This is going to get real bad in a big hurry. This is real bad. I mean, okay, so fine. We try g6, and he gets queen c5, gets the piece back immediately. Our king is absolutely stuck. We can try to play here, but he'll just castle, and e5 is already a huge threat. Yes, he's down a piece, but it isn't going to be that way for long. This is going to get real bad. So instead, so b4, we played b4. It was possible to go ahead and take here even. Just taking and castling, we got to go back. If instead he tries to play knight gf6, well then queen b3 happens, and we don't get to go hide where we'd like to hide. You can go king e8, knight to e6. We're hitting the queen. Big problems there. We can jump out, take this guy, come back with tempo, and we're going to come back to e7 or to c7 in a second after we play bishop f4 and losing lots of material here. This is a super tactical game. Knight c7, and we're already losing a bunch of material. Our king's still terrible. So after b4 is played, queen to c7, drop back. White chose to castle here, and black played knight to e5. Again, delaying this castling. I don't know that he could do that. This gets real bad in a hurry. Bishop f4, pinning this knight. And so he chose knight f6, which, yeah, the knight's pinned, but what's going to happen here? Well, knight f3, adding additional pressure. Still not castling. And bishop d6. And now here comes an amazing move that you would never expect. So this game is played on chess.com. You can see the timestamps. White only spent 15 seconds calculating this move, which is okay. I mean, I could look at this position for 15 seconds. It wouldn't even occur to me to play this. Played queen to d6. Queen takes d6, which is fantastic. We're already getting one piece for the queen, and now we pick up a second piece, and it's much stronger to take with the knight because there's discovery threat of going to knight f7 and maybe grabbing the rook and then hitting the queen is much, much stronger than just taking with the queen, because then the queen would just move away and you don't really have a good threat after that. Bishop to e6, just trying to get pieces out. Knight takes f7 now with discovery, and queen to e7 is played. We can't really take the knight. Actually, we can take the knight, and we should take the knight. That's like the only way to try to survive here, is to just give up the queen and take this. And we've restored something similar to material balance. White's still up a pawn. White is doing fantastic with this extra pass pawn. The black king is still in trouble, and it's hard to get the rooks out. It's not so hard to get the rooks out, but we're in trouble. But this was like the only way to try to hang on. Rook to f3. We'll bring the other rook in. We'll advance the pawn. Problems. So we chose queen e7, just trying to hang on to the queen. And bishop to e6. I mean, we could take the rook. I mean, that makes sense. But I mean, let's take back here first. So queen takes e6, and now you really can take the rook, and it works, and it's okay. We'll look at that. Knight takes. Yeah, castles. It looks like we're going to get the knight back and maybe going to survive-ish because we have quite a bit of material for the queen. Or white has quite a bit of material for the queen. But after knight c5, a tempo move, forcing the queen away. The queen needs to stay in touch with the f7 square so that the knight can't escape. But now e5, forcing this knight away, which is going to allow the rook to come in and defend the f7 square. Knight d5, and now knight f7. And we can take it, but then bishop g5 comes. And if the queen moves, we grab here, the king takes, and if we look at this position, we've got two rooks and a pawn for the queen, which is way more than enough. We're doing fantastic. So this was one way to go. But here white chose to opt, instead of taking the rook, to go ahead and try to keep the pressure. And this is actually a much stronger move. Knight to d6, check. The king comes forward. It's not clear where the king can go. It doesn't want to go to the open files, can't go to f7, doesn't want to be attacked by the rook, doesn't want to be a target against this rook, so it comes to e7. Knight c5 happens, and now queen g4, just trying to get out of the way. But these knights are monstrous. These three minor pieces are clearly much stronger than the queen is right now, especially when you throw in the fact that this pawn is here as well. E5, already threatening to kick the knight. And then knight to d5 happens, and now bishop g5. And, okay, it looks like you can take it, but that's just allows a mate in two. We take it, we get rook check, come here, and this is a pretty mate because we cover the rook, and the knight covers these squares, and then, of course, the rook covers the rest. So you can't take the bishop. And so it didn't come up with anything better than, I mean, there's not really even another legal move other than bring the knight back. And here... again, it looks like, oh, we just take the knight. And yeah, you can, but he went ahead and played this way, just adding additional pressure to it. He's going to bring in more and more pieces. Here, white tried to play rook g8. I looked at like trying to make a hole for the king. That doesn't really work. I mean, I can try to play here, and my idea is I'm going to go hide. We'll see what happens. You can go ahead and take now, and if we continue our hiding tactic, you can bring in another rook. The threat is rook to d7, and now king g8. And after the rook comes in, you can try rook f7 to try to block and hold it, but now we can grab this guy. And if you trade rooks here, well, now you have a big problem. Queen f5, sure, no problem. Come back. Knight f6 is unstoppable. You're going to have to give up the queen, and then you're just going to be down two pieces, and there's a monster pawn. I looked at, instead of playing king g8 here, maybe trying to play g6 and see if we could keep the g file or the f file closed. That ain't going to go so well either. You can give a knight check, forcing the king away. And now f7 check. You can't really take it. So you go king to g7. Going to h6 was just an immediate mate. But now we kick you out anyway. You're forced up to f6. And now rook d4. And you cannot stop rook to h8. So there's no way to go hide the king. It can't go anywhere. So he played rook hg8. I think this is some sort of prayer move. He's hoping that after we take, maybe this bishop will move and maybe he'll let me mate him. I mean, I'm sure the time situation was quite low now. Anything could happen, but it's simply not going to work. We kick the queen out of the way, and now that's not a possibility at all. And rook a to e1, and it's awful. It's been awful all along, honestly. But here, white decided they had had enough and actually just resigned. A quick way to see how the game might end is maybe you try h6. We're just going to take it. King to f7, and we can go knight to e6 check. Or even, sorry, that's not knight to e6. This is knight to e6. And the threats are, okay, fine, we'll take the bishop, no big deal. Well, we just grabbed this guy, and yeah, you can take this guy, but knight f6 picks up the queen, we're up a whole piece, this pawn is still here, this king is still here, it's bad. It's real bad. So it was just a fantastic attacking game, really cool to see what sort of ideas that white has, and something we should all be aware of. However, there's a better way to play. And we can do much better than how this game went. So let's look at that. So going back to the initial c3 position, bishop to e7 feels sort of natural and safe, but it's really not the right idea. It's too passive. Bishop d6 is the right idea, as we pointed out. And if bishop to c4 now, well, we just drop the queen back to c7, and the queen is guarding this guy. Notice we already have sort of a shattered structure for white. We're threatening another pawn, and if white tries to continue on, well, he castles. We can already grab this pawn if we want, but let's not be greedy. Let's try to be safe here. He's threatening to play bishop takes. We'll go ahead and put the knight out. Notice the bishop here stops this e5 move, which was a big problem that black had in the other game, and also a problem that I had when I played, because I also played bishop e7, and I succumbed to a bishop takes f7 pretty quick mate too. Got destroyed. So bishop to h6 is the sort of stunning move here. And if white doesn't know this move, they're honestly much worse already. This is a kind of one of these lines that like white needs to know incredibly well. They cannot just play sort of comfortably intuitively. I mean, we're threatening this, we're threatening this, we're going to castle and then develop quickly, and everything's going to go great for us if we can just hold off some of these initial attacks. And this is something the white really has to know well if they're going to play it. Bishop h6 is the idea. The point is if we take it, he's going to take here, and then all bets are back on this f7 square. Here we can go ahead and grab this guy, and then he plays king to h1, and we play bishop to g4. Again, just taking it. It's a nice tempo move to develop, hits the queen. And again, he's got to be careful with what moves he plays. He doesn't want to drop the bishop back. He drops the bishop back, and our world gets a lot safer. So he plays like queen to d2, and now this move you need to know rook g8. And rook g8 is an important move. If he captures here, well, now we're doing better now. He can go ahead and grab the rook. That's great. But we have bishop to e5. We have knight to d7. We have castling. We have a super weak king here, and our own king is starting to look pretty okay. So that doesn't quite work. So instead, queen to g5 is really the only way to play. And here we can just go knight bd7. And the point is that he can play bishop takes f7 now. We'll grab here. He can take, and we're take the bishop, and we're up a whole piece here, but he has a perpetual. And after the check here, he can give this check, and we have to go king to g7. If we go to say g6, then he has this check. And now if we try to go back, well, we have problems now because that hangs our queen pretty quickly there. That's not good. So we need to go back, and it's just a repetition. So we go king to g7, and he has to know this move. And we grab it here, and knight f5 is the way to seal the repetition. We grab here, he goes e7, we have to go back. I mean, we can try to go forward, but I don't think that's such a hot idea because this is going to get us in a lot of trouble. So it ends in a repetition, and it only ends in a repetition only if white knows all of this theory and then also remembers it. So there's a few key lines you really have to know here. The main premise is after the c3 move, you got to know to go. Your next couple moves are almost just route. You're just going to go bishop d6. You're going to go queen to c7. You're going to go knight f6. And if you do those things, you're safe. You're happy. And if white doesn't know the exact best way to play against that setup, you're going to end up with a tremendously much better game and a fantastic position. Anyhow, I hope this game was exciting and cool and fun, and that you see a way to hopefully avoid some trouble in your own games, because I certainly didn't. I got crushed. Anyhow, thanks a lot, guys. Wish you the best. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.